It was a Sunday evening in early March 1965, and Viola Luiso from Detroit, Michigan, was settling in for what was sure to be another busy week as a part-time nursing student, wife, and mother of 5 children. As she and her husband Jim were settling in for the evening, they turned on the late local news and learned that hundreds of voting rights protesters had been tear gassed and beaten in Selma, Alabama, where 50% of the citizens, but only 2% of the registered voters were Black. In the coming weeks, Viola would attend a local march and rally, and she would hear from activists who had been in Selma. And she decided right then and there that she had to get to Central Alabama, that she had to be a part of the solution. So she packed a bag early on Tuesday, March 16th, and asked her friend Sarah to watch her children. She decided she wouldn't tell her husband Jim about her plans until she was in Selma. So she got in her Oldsmobile, pointed it south, and began the 800-mile drive, all by herself. Once she arrived in Selma, she did what was ever asked of her, from nursing people's wounds, to babysitting their children, to taxiing people back and forth between Selma and Montgomery. By all accounts, she was a model ally, celebrating and fighting for a community of which she was not even a member. Not by her voting status, not by her race, not by geography. For all of my adult life, I've been a university educator, and I've taught people about allyship, marginalization, and privilege. And I've asked them to take their causes, whatever they may be, the environment, immigration, anti-racism, to take those causes and make them their passions, just like Viola did. But I've been met with mixed results. And that's partially my fault. I teach and write about a framework for people on a social justice journey. It requires 3 things: self-reflection, education, and action or activism. We know that less than 5% of people ever get to action or activism. And I think that's because well-meaning allies, we and our educators, we spend so much time on the self-reflection, on those implicit biases tests in our journaling, that we never get to the real necessary action where systemic change can happen. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in a series of sermons, famously preached about how the silence of a friend was a far worse betrayal than the harsh words of an enemy. Quite frankly, we just expect more from our friends, from our allies. If you are an ally, a self-defined friend to the marginalized, who's betrayed the people you say you care about the most with your silence and lack of action, I want to encourage you to do better. You will not have to drive 800 miles to find like-minded people. You can do it simply by scrolling through your social media, watching the local news, and looking at the bulletin boards at your local restaurants and coffee shops. But you're going to have to be intentional. You're going to have to be intentional about finding these folks. And if you're an ally, you're going to have to be okay with being uncomfortable once you find them. Because a good co-conspirator will challenge you. They will challenge you in your thoughts and your actions. They will hold you accountable as an ally. I leave you today with some of the last words Viola ever spoke to her husband, Jim. Because as many of you likely know, she never made it home to Detroit. She died and paid the ultimate sacrifice for allyship when she was gunned down on the highway between Selma and Montgomery by 4 members of the KKK on March 25th, 1965, just a few weeks after she saw that original footage. She called her husband Jim from the road and told him about her plan to be in Selma. And he begged her to come home. He begged her to turn the car around and head back home. But she refused. She was adamant. She had to get to Selma because, quote, it's everybody's fight. It's everybody's fight. Here we are 55 years later, and those words still ring true. We should not put it on the backs of the most marginalized to fight for social justice and equality. Allies, I'm talking to you. It's time to put down the implicit biases test. It's time to pack a bag, get in your cars, and drive toward Selma.